The Tennis Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Onyx Fantasy. Sign the promo code SGPN to go up to $1,000 in bonus cash. We're also brought to you by Rhythm. Get your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgambling.com/rhythm, sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. And welcome, everybody, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It is currently Saturday night, roughly 8 p.m. Eastern Time on September 21st. I'm your host, Scott Reichel, once again going solo for this pod for the quarterfinal edition of Chengdu and Hangzhou. So we're going to preview both of those tournaments for the quarters, then we'll back once again for the semis and the final later on in the week. Either way, though, before we get into the actual recap of what happened in the last episode, do you want to take care of some housekeeping? I'll remind you once again to like, subscribe on YouTube, and a reminder, don't forget that you can still listen to the podcast audio only. That's okay, too. Reminder, it's still on Spotify or Apple, so you definitely can still access the podcast there. And if you do end up doing so, don't forget to leave a rating and a review. Same thing with YouTube. Don't forget to like, subscribe. And I believe we're currently at 538 on subscribers, trying to get to 600 by the end of the season. So hopefully you can help us get there. Point is, though, if you are new to the show, welcome. If you are familiar with the show, welcome back. And let's get into the actual matches in a second. Also remind you, first of all, to check out the merch store on the SGPN website. A lot of great Tennis Gambling Podcast merchandise. We have sweatshirts, t-shirts, and mugs, all high quality, all affordable. Recommend getting yourself something from the merch store. Plus a reminder that we do have the SGPN network reminder of the week, which is the fact that the war against corporate gambling is heating up, and SGPN needs you to do your part. If you could take a couple seconds to rate and review the Tennis Gambling Podcast, most importantly, tell a friend. Word of mouth is very important and is the heartbeat of SGPN. Help the network grow by telling other people and by leaving a rating and a review. Anyway, time to start off with the actual recap of what happened for our picks in the last episode. Overall, decent. Ended up splitting, did win the lock, lost the dog. For the lock, nice and easy winner with Nishioka minus 3.5 games, a minus 110 against Marter as he won in straight sets. Never in doubt, took a little while to get going, but then eventually he broke a couple times in the second set as he coasted to a nice easy win. So never in doubt there. Nice win for Nishioka. For the dog, though, picked up a loss there. Had Baena and Moutet over 2.5 sets at plus 145. Love the price. Moutet was up a break, serving for the match, serving for the set, in the first set. Then he fell apart, and Baena won the first set via breaker. Then Moutet, classic fashion, fell apart, and Baena killed him in the second set. So we had a decent script. Moutet, though, ended up falling apart mentally after blowing the first set entirely. So we had a chance there. Unfortunately, didn't work out as Baena did win in straight sets with one competitive set, one very competitive set, and one that was very straightforward. So either way, picked up a loss there for the dog. Not the end of the world, though. Still won the lock, so it could have been a lot worse. Either way, though, I decided since we had a couple days to recap, I was not going to recap all of the actual matches. Instead, I'll just focus on the matches that happened on Saturday to make it easier. So recapping what happened in the Saturday matches. For starters, in Chengdu, you had Mannarino winning in 3 sets against Zhu. He was down a break in the third set, and you ended up seeing him come back and win. So either way, nice win for Mannarino. Massive favorite, but he's had a really bad year since the Australian Open. Nice to see him back in the quarterfinals of an ATP event, no matter how, I'd say, underwhelming the field might be. You're looking at Musetti, who ended up beating O'Connell in a final set breaker. Thought it was going to be a war when that actually was, I'd say, put on the match calendar, because I just thought that O'Connell's a pretty underrated hardcourt player. Musetti, I think, is not the best hardcourt player, and that's why I was skeptical of taking Musetti to make a deep run in the event. I thought that he was actually an upset award against O'Connell. Very close, as O'Connell did have a break in the third set. He was actually serving for the match, and he choked it. So nice comeback by Musetti. Either way, though, point is O'Connell had a chance to pull off the upset, and he did not do so. Bublik got the job done, who beat Gomez 6-4, 6-4, and Chang ended up beating Safulin in I'd say the most entertaining match of the day, as he ended up beating Safulin after losing the first set 6-3, 6-3 in the final 2 sets. So recapping the outrights for Chengdu, we currently have one person left. We have Bublik, so hopefully gets the job done there. For the actual matches on Saturday in Hangzhou, Cilic ended up looking good against Nishioka, beat him in straight sets 6-4, 6-1. Baena ended up beating Kruger in 3 sets. Saw Rune lose immediately. Not shocked there. That's why we ended up not taking Rune in anything, because he has been awful for the last couple months, and mentally still a head case, and he completely no-showed as Uchiyama beat him in straight sets. And Zhang ended up beating Bellucci 6-3, 6-0. So once again, to recap the outrights that we actually have so far for the events, I know it has been a while. For Chengdu, a reminder that for the outrights, the only person we have left is Bublik at plus 850. For Hangzhou, though, we do have a couple of options. We have Nakashima at 750, and we also have Zhang at 13-1. So what? Not, I'd say, a great overall couple days for the outrights, but definitely could have been a lot worse. We are still alive with decent odds in both events, so hopefully we at least get one of them to cross the finish line over the course of the next few days. Anyway, before we get into any of the actual preview of the quarterfinal matches, trying to think if there's anything that's kind of worth talking about from an ATP perspective. You have the Laver Cup going on right now. A couple of entertaining matches. Saw Tiafoe beat Medvedev. I saw Fritz beat Zverev again. Alcaraz beat Shelton, which is not surprising at all. It's an entertaining atmosphere, and I get why they do it. I would rather watch competitive tennis. I understand that people are still competing. I'm not saying that it's a full farce, but when you throw in a third set tiebreak system, because it's an exhibition and you have both guys fighting it out, but it's based on some bragging rights competition between Europe and the world, I'm good. Like, I don't really care much about it. I know the Laver Cup, I think, got an extension, actually, so it's going to be around for a while. If you enjoy the Laver Cup, then I have nothing wrong with that, but it's not for me. I'd rather watch competitive tennis where both guys are actually laying it all on the line. Exhibition tennis, mid-season, I get it's kind of like an all-star weekend. I kind of understand where they're going, but it's not for me. But for Laver Cup action, you have had some competitive matches. I just haven't watched any of them. But once again, if you do like the Laver Cup, I do like the Black Court, though. I think it's one of the nicer courts available on the entire tour. And I think that actually looks very sharp on TV. So I think that more tournaments should use the Black Court. I think it's definitely solid with the bright yellow tennis balls. Do you like the contrast? But for the sake of the actual event, not a big Laver Cup guy. If you are, nothing wrong with it, but just not for me. Anyway, before we get into any of the actual preview of the Sunday matches for the quarterfinals, do want to remind you once again that we are brought to you by Rook Fantasy because they have a pick'em, and the pick'em is always adding to their awesome menu. They're now having first touchdown projections. If you do want to find a lot of ways to win money with the NFL, college football, MLB, MMA, and more, a reminder that you can use entries from all of those sports combined. So you can mix and match and find whatever you like. A reminder that their lobby is jam-packed with profit boosts and no sweat entries. You can now use specials and boosts on all your flex entries, and I'll probably end up doing something for game one of a couple of WNBA playoff series starting on Sunday. For this one, for game one, I think I'll go with Ionescu higher on her assists. She's been very good facilitating recently. I see that carrying over into game one against Atlanta, so I think Ionescu assists higher is worth a look for that one. A reminder, though, you can sign up with the promo code SGPN to claim your special pick and first-time deposit offer up to $1,000 bonus cash on fantasy promo code SGPN. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast. Just finished recapping what happened over the last couple days or so with the outrights, the lock and dog picks, and the matches on Saturday. Time to get into the actual matches taking place on Sunday. Now, for the actual matches, a reminder, Chengdu does start about half an hour earlier than Hangzhou. So we're going to start off with Chengdu and then work our way from there. Starting off with the first match on the actual slate, you have Jari taking on Kachmazov. And for this one, Jari is about minus 160. Kachmazov is around plus 140. The over-under is around 23.5 games. The spread's minus 1.5 for Jari, plus 1.5 for Kachmazov. And you are looking at what should be a competitive matchup. The over 2.5 sets is plus 130. Now, Jari actually won a tennis match. Congratulations. Ended up beating Klein in a competitive three-setter. That was his first win in months on the ATP Tour. He's been really bad. As for Kachmazov, he has been solid in the event. He actually went through qualifying, did not drop a set, and ended up beating Taro Daniel and Kovacevic in straight sets. So he has been looking sharp. And Jari, we know, has been really underwhelming for the last couple months, and he's laying about 160. I understand Jari on paper is the better player, and if you go by his overall stats over the years, he should win this match. However, I'm not laying 160 with Jari. I don't know about you, but based on current form, I can't do it. He's won one match in months, and he ended up beating Klein in 3 sets. Klein wasn't in great form either, but he got the job done. I see a lot of holds. I see a couple breakers in this matchup. Maybe the over is worth a look for you, but I do think that expecting Jari to win at this price as a favorite is asking way too much. I think Kachmanazov has looked very sharp so far in the courts here, and I do think he's handled the speed of the courts quite well. I see a lot of holds once again, maybe a couple breakers, so you might see a bit of a coin flip here. But plus 140, I like quite a bit. I see a very close matchup. Should go down to the wire. Jari won one match. Pump the brakes. I need to see him win a couple in a row before I declare him being back. Give me the dog here at a decent plus money price until I see Jari prove himself against more proven competition. Either way, though, I'm moving on to the next matchup. You have Mannarino taking on Musetti. For this one, Musetti is a massive favorite. Musetti is around minus 370. You have Mannarino at about plus 290. For the game spread, you have minus 4 for Musetti, plus 4 for Mannarino. The over-under is around 21.5. For set wagering, Musetti in straight sets is minus 120. Mannarino to win a set is minus 110. The over 2.5 sets is plus 160. Now, Mannarino ended up winning against a relative unknown in the last match. Not easy, though. Was down a break in the third set. And love 40, but he got his way out of it as he ended up winning in the final set. So point is, Musetti didn't look great either. In fact, O'Connell was one service game away from winning the match, and Musetti came back and won. So both guys were not exactly sharp in their last match. However, Mannarino, we know, has been pretty successful in 250s on hardcourt over the years, and Mannarino has been looking a bit sharper over the last couple weeks. Won a couple rounds in Rennes in France as he was doing a challenger event, and he ended up parlaying that into Chengdu, beat Ottman in 3, and beat Zhao in 3. Now, for Musetti, he had not played a hardcourt match in months, but he ended up beating O'Connell in his first ended up beating O'Connell after not playing since the US Open. So not months, but basically a month or so, a little bit less than that. Musetti, though, didn't look that sharp, and the serve was a bit concerning. Mannarino's not a great server either. Faced off one time in the head-to-head on hardcourt last year, actually, Indian Wells, and Mannarino did beat him 6-4, 6-4. Maybe I'm a little bit crazy here, but I really don't want to lay this with Musetti. I know Mannarino has been kind of an auto fade for the last couple months, but it seems like he's starting to regain his form a bit. And I do think that even though he has dropped the set to Ottman and Zhao, I think his game translates pretty well here to the courts in Chengdu. Now, I know Musetti does stand very far back with the return, and you're looking at a spot where Musetti should get a lot of returns in play. However, I think Mannarino's flat overall strokes can give Musetti some problems over the course of a potential marathon. So I am going to go with the dog here. I think that Musetti might win, but 4 games is a lot. I think Mannarino can hang in there. I don't mind the over 2.5 sets of plus 160. Mannarino beat him on hardcourt last year, and I think you might see a pretty competitive battle ensue between these two. So give me Mannarino plus the 4, maybe a slight lean on the money line, but I don't mind the over 21.5 games as well. I see a close match, maybe 3 sets at plus 160 is worth a look, but give me a competitive matchup that I think Musetti might win. But I think Mannarino's definitely not dead to rights. I think he can actually pull this off. So give me the dog, who I think is mispriced. I think Mannarino should be, in my opinion, around minus 240. I think 292 is a bit high, so I am going to go with Mannarino for the value to keep the match interesting. Either way, though, I'm moving on to the next matchup. You have Martinez against Hanfmann for this one. For this one, you have Hanfmann at about minus 120. You have Martinez at around plus 100 or plus 104 if you shop around. Over-under is 22.5 games. The over is minus 115. The under is minus 105. Over 2.5 sets is plus 120. For the actual set wagering, you have Hanfmann in straight sets at plus 185. You have Martinez in straight sets at plus 275. Now, Hanfmann, historically speaking, is the better hardcourt player between the two of them. However, Martinez has been good lately, and looking at his last couple of matches, he has been successful, and he's been pretty convincing. Had a bye in the first round, then ended up beating Vukic in straight sets. Vukic did just beat Chorch, so nice win there in straight sets. Really never in doubt. As for Hanfmann, ended up beating Pericard in 3 and beat Mochizuki in the first round in straight sets. Did beat Tabilo, though, in the Davis Cup and ended up beating Kovalik. So he has had a decent showing recently, especially if you include the Davis Cup. I think the win over Tabilo was a nice overall, I'd say, confidence booster. I know Tabilo has not been great recently, but that's still basically a top 20 win. So I think that Hanfmann will build on that, and I think that he'll be able to look sharp in this one. Technically, it's a top 22 win, but you get my point. I think that Hanfmann's in good form. Martinez has always been more of a clay court specialist. He's decent on hard court. They have faced off a couple times in their careers, all on clay, and Hanfmann is actually 2-1. Won the most recent meeting in 2023, as Hanfmann beat Martinez 6-2, 6-0 in Santiago on clay last year. So I think I'm going to go with the favorite here. I think Hanfman's better on hard court, mostly because of the serve. I think Martinez's serve will be vulnerable, and I think that Hanfman's serve is a bit underrated for the sake of this event. Give me Hanfman to get the job done at -124 on the money line in this one. Moving on to probably the match of the entire day for Sunday. Definitely a ramp up in terms of quality. We're mentioning matches that you can kind of gloss over. Then you get the Sheng against Bublik, which is a U.S. Open first round rematch, which Sheng did win in 5 sets. Now you're looking at the actual price for these players. Sheng is -175. Bublik is +155. For the over-under, 22.5 games, -115. That's towards the over. The under is -105. For the spread, -2.5 for Sheng, you have +2.5 for Bublik. For the over 2.5 sets, +130. For set spread, Sheng in straight sets is a +140. You have Bublik to win a set is -170. Bublik in straight sets is +325. Now, Sheng looked really good against Safulin. Did drop the first set, came back and looked very comfortable on these courts for the last 2 sets. Plus, he, of course, is from China. Massive home crowd support. Only Chinese guy left in the field. So, crowd will be definitely in favor of Sheng. Bublik, though, had been struggling for the last couple months. Was not good in the Davis Cup either, as he lost to Mueller in 3 sets. Point is, though, he looked good in the first round against Gomez, who is really not known for being a great hardcourt player. Win nonetheless, though, as he ended up winning 6-4, 6-4. Did have 8 aces with 9 double faults, but he was only broken 1 time. So the question here is, do I think Bublik will be able to avenge the loss against Sheng, or do I think that Sheng is just too rock solid and you're looking at Bublik being a ticking time bomb, and eventually Bublik will self-destruct with double faults and poor shot selection to lose the match in straight sets? So I think the value, you could argue, is actually on Sheng in straight sets at +140 if you think that Bublik even has a chance of just no-showing the match. If you think Bublik might end up getting annoyed with Sheng's consistency and his willingness to keep the ball in play with his rallying skills, then Bublik might roll over and die in the second set like we saw with Mutet against Baena a couple days ago. So I think there might be a bit of value on Sheng +140 in straight sets. -175 I really don't want to take. I think there's no value on that. I think Bublik can keep it interesting, but I do think you're looking at a matchup where Bublik can once again turn on the crowd. If the crowd ends up rooting heavily for Sheng, maybe Bublik as the entertainer will, I'd say, relish the opportunity to be a villain, or maybe he'll just not want to be there because he wants to be beloved. Who knows? Point is, though, Sheng's the better player as far as I'm concerned. I think Bublik once again gave him out as an outright, hoping that Sheng would be exhausted after the first round or so, and he might, as he had a 3-set marathon against Safulin. But I think for the sake of this matchup, I think Sheng's going to win. For value, I think I'll lean to Sheng -1.5 sets. Bublik didn't look great against Gomez, who's really not a good hardcourt player. Step up competition here. We saw Sheng win in the U.S. Open against him. Big reason Bublik did kind of punt a couple of important points there with the serve. And with that being the case, I do think you're looking at him probably doing so again. Give me Sheng to get the job done in this matchup. Moving on to Hangzhou for the 4 matches here. First match, you have Nakashima taking on Hijikata. Now, massive favorite on the card as Nakashima is around -460. You have Hijikata at +370. For the game spread, -4.5 for Nakashima, +4.5 for Hijikata. Over-unders around 20.5 or 21.5 games. For set spread, you have Nakashima in straight sets at around -150. Hijikata to win a set is +120. Over 2.5 sets is +175. Now, they did face off earlier in their careers, face off twice, both times coincidentally on clay. Faced off in juniors in the French Open in 2018 and faced off in Houston this year, actually, on clay. Both times Nakashima did win in straight sets. Both times he only dropped 5 games. Now, the Houston meeting was on clay, but it was this year, so at least that counts for something. Hijikata did come from behind as he was able to win a 3-set marathon against Zoomer, and ended up seeing him once again look a bit average in the U.S. Open. Did beat Fekina, who's had a really bad year, then got buried by Dimitrov. So he's not exactly been that great. Had the nice comeback win against Chorich a couple weeks ago, but Nagashima's been good. We saw him beat Rune in the U.S. Open, made a pretty decent run, and I do think when you're looking at who he actually beat in that U.S. Open, he beat Rune, ended up beating Musetti. He looked good, and I think that he's the better hardcourt player. The serve, I think, will translate, and I think that Hijikata is really not a great server. I know Nakashima's not a good returner, but he had a 3-set marathon against Wang, which was very back and forth early on. Then he settled in as he won the final set 6-1. Swept the Davis Cup matches, beat Tabilo, beat Kovalik, and ended up beating Marterer. So I like the form he's in. He's finally channeling some of that top 20 upside we saw a couple years ago. I think that he's going to win this comfortably, probably in straight sets. Give me Nakashima minus 1.5 sets at minus 150. If you want to go for another option, maybe if you want to go for the under, the issue is Nakashima might have a breaker, which could be a bit concerning. But I think for the sake of this matchup, give me the straight sets win for Nakashima. I think he'll get the job done in this one with the much better serve. Moving on to the next matchup, you have Cilic, who I'm personally thrilled to see in the quarterfinals in 2024. You have him taking on Uchiyama. Now, Uchiyama has been a pretty long-time challenger-level player, but he was able to beat Rune in the first round because Rune has been awful for the last couple of months. Point is, though, Cilic looked good against Nishioka. It was not great early on in the first round as he ended up falling behind a set to Svaja, but he came back and won the final set via bagel. So he ended up looking sharp, looked decent in the challenger event before this, so I do like the fact he was playing some challengers to get, I say, accustomed to the hard court swing of things, and that has paid off for him. Now, they have faced off one time in their careers, and they faced off in Tokyo in 2017. Cilic won straight sets. Does it mean anything? Not at all, because that was roughly 7 years ago, and Cilic was fully healthy then, not coming off of a long-time injury. So I think Cilic has been the better player. I think that Cilic is definitely dangerous, but Uchiyama did go through qualifying, and he has been very effective as he's not dropped a set. Ended up beating Cressy in straight sets, beat Kruger, beat McCabe, and beat Rune all in straight sets. So he's in good form. I think I'm picking Cilic to win. I think the firepower will be there, and Cilic is also a better server than he is. So I think that you're looking at what should be a fun matchup. Uchiyama, though, has always been a challenger level player who has not really thrived or had any success on the ATP level. And now he beat Rune, who's been a mess for the last couple of months. Not going to overreact to it. Give me Cilic, who looked really good against Nishioka. And Nishioka looked good against Marterer. So that's a pretty good win against a pretty solid hardcore player. Give me Cilic to get the job done in this one. Maybe in straight sets, but you might end up seeing 3. So I think I am going to go with Cilic to win, but maybe the over for team total at around 13 or 12.5. I can see a breaker here, maybe a 3-setter, so maybe that's an option. But I think Cilic wins and moves on into the semifinals. Moving on to the next matchup, you have a matchup between two relatively different players because you have Kukushkin, who's been a very long-time member of the ATP Tour. He's been around for a while. Then you have Bu for his opponent, who's only 22. So you have a bit of an age gap here between Bu and Kukushkin. Checking out the actual age, though, for Kukushkin, I want to say he's around 35. Might be older than that, though. He is actually 36. So point is, you have a pretty decent age gap here. However, you have seen Kukushkin look very fresh for a guy his age because he was able to win comfortably in the first couple rounds, beat Shevchenko in straight sets, a nice win there, and beat Darderi in straight sets. Also was in a challenger the week prior, ended up beating a couple of players, a loss to O'Connell. Not a bad loss, though, because O'Connell ended up beating, or I should say, ended up making it to a third set with a chance to serve it out for the match against Musetti, who was favored to win the entire tournament. So the point is, for the sake of this matchup, should be interesting. Both players look solid. For the actual price, though, Bu is minus 170, and Kukushkin is plus 150. The over-under is 22.5 games. The spread is minus 2.5 for Bu and plus 2.5 for Kukushkin. For the actual set spread here, Bu in straight sets is around plus 145. Kukushkin to win a set is minus 175. Now, for the actual head-to-head, doesn't exist. It's nothing to talk about. Now, Bu has really been unproven over the course of his career, but he's upside. And I think with that being the case, you can make the argument that he's definitely going to be a solid player for China over the next decade or so. However, look at his competition. He ended up beating Kashanov in 3 in his last match, beat Gaston in straight sets, so he has been comfortable here in Hangzhou. But he was really bad in the Davis Cup. Ended up losing to a relatively unknown player, Kretu, and ended up beating Boitan in straight sets. But he ended up losing to Pullman. Pullman's in Shanghai, and we saw him lose pretty early on to Ruud in the U.S. Open. Point is, I think that Kukushkin is actually alive to win this, and I think the price is pretty insane in favor of Bu, who has really not beaten anybody. Beat Kashanov, good win, I get it. Kashanov's been kind of a mess for the last couple months, but you're looking at Kukushkin, who's a proven hardcore player over the years, ended up beating Shevchenko, beat Darderi. Overall, I like his current form, and I think that the price is a bit off. I think that Bu should be favored 170 is kind of massive. Give me Kukushkin at plus 150. I would probably set it at Bu at around minus 120, minus 130. I see a very close matchup. Might go 3 sets, maybe the over 2.5 sets at plus 135 is calling you. But give me the dog here at plus 150. That price just feels a bit off to me in terms of value. Moving on to the last match of the Sunday slate, looking at a matchup between Baena and Zhang. Now, of course, we have Zhang to win the event, but you're looking at the price here. He's minus 250, and Baena is plus 210. For the actual spread here, you have Zhang at around minus 3.5. You have Baena at plus 3.5. For the over-under 21.5 games, which is kind of the common total for the matches on the slate today, 21.5 or 22.5. Now, for the set spread, you have Zhang in straight sets at even money. You have Baena to win a set at minus 130. The over 2.5 sets is plus 160. Now, Zhang had a tale of two matches because its first match wasn't exactly that easy early on, as Zhang did drop a set to Yevseyev, as he ended up winning the first set, dropped the second, then won the third. Then he killed Bellucci and won via bagel in the second set. Baena, though, has been involved in a couple of competitive sets, bare minimum, at a competitive match though against Kruger, as he dropped the first set and won in 3. So the question is, based on the overall matchup, the face-off one time, though, in the head-to-head, face-off on clay in Tunisia, and you saw Baena win 6-2, 6-1. It was on clay. It was 2 years ago. Really means nothing. Now, Zhang has the home crowd environment, and of course, he has the firepower advantage because he has a very solid amount of threats on the forehand side, backhand side, and the serve. Baena, not a great server, but I mentioned in the last dog pick for the last episode, Baena's been in good form. Won a challenger event the week prior in Sevilla, so I think that he is in pretty good form, but I think that Zhang's better, and I think Zhang will use his overall firepower to take control of the points. Baena's going to try to be defensive, but he's going to be forced to push himself back into a corner, basically, standing multiple feet behind the actual baseline. Not where he wants to be. I think Zhang's an underrated volleyer. I think his serve's good, too. So give me Zhang, potentially in straight sets. But I think for this one, I'm going to go with Zhang to just get the job done. Maybe in a parlay piece, maybe the over 12.5 team total. I think you might get a set there that goes 7-5 or 7-6. But give me Zhang to once again get the job done. Baena's been good, but I think that his run ends here. I think Zhang just has too many weapons on hard court. I'll go with him as my pick for this one. Either way, though, that's going to wrap it up for the actual matches for Sunday, all 8 matches. Now it's time for the lock and dog picks. However, for the actual lock and dog, I'll remind you once again that we are brought to you by BetUS, which is a reminder, one of the best books you can actually use because they have been around in multiple locations for 30 plus years, and you can bet anywhere. BetUS is available in tons of locations, including internationally. They also launched an all-new live betting experience. Easily deposit using cryptocurrency and get lightning fast payouts. You could also use the link to sign up and get a 1 to 25% deposit bonus on your first 3 deposits, which is a pretty rare bonus. Usually it's 1, now it's 3. Go to sportscampodcast.com/BetUS, sportscampodcast.com/BetUS, promo code SGPN, so they know we sent you. BetUS, America's favorite sportsbook. We're also brought to you by Rhythm. A reminder, with college football going on right now and the NFL, it's a good time to actually get into the model business, and you can get you can use our sponsor to build a sports betting platform that helps provide bettors of all levels the ability to create custom predictive betting models in seconds and get predictions on moneyline spreads, totals, and props. A reminder, AI did have a great week 4 rhythm in NFL Week 2, 22.5% ROI on the NFL for spread bets and 44.3% ROI on NFL moneyline bets. A reminder, if you want to check out the platform, you can use either your own model from scratch. You can use one of them on the leaderboards or let a Rhythm just give you predictions on the games. But you can get a free day trial if you want to try out the actual platform. 7-day free trial by going to sportscampus.com/rhythm, sportscampus.com/RITHMM. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast. Just finished getting into the quarters for Chengdu and for Hangzhou. Now it's time for the lock and dog picks. For the lock, I actually am going to use BetUS, and I am going to go with a tiebreaker prop. I'm going to go with the Zhang and Bublik match, no tie breaks, at minus 140. Couple reasons why. First of all, Bublik, despite having a good serve, we know is a psychopath who will break himself via double fault at least one time per set. Plus, if he ends up quitting mentally, once the crowd fully supports Zhang, that gives us a free win or 2. But Bublik has not been involved in any breakers recently. In fact, 11 straight sets. Bublik's been in with no tie break, so I think that this is a pretty good price. Plus, it's minus 185 on DraftKings, shopping around, so you're saving 40 plus cents just by looking at a different book. Plus, Zhang's been in the same boat. Zhang has had 0 tie breaks in 9 straight matches, or 9 straight sets, I mean. So you're looking at a common theme here. Both Bublik and Zhang rarely go to breakers recently, and I think with that being the case, there's some value at minus 140. Plus, they faced off against each other in the U.S. Open, and previously, 7 career sets between them, and none of those 7 sets went to a tie break, so the history angle supports it. recent numbers overall supported, and with that being the case, minus 140 is a good price to me. Give me Shang and Bublik under half a breaker at minus 140 on BetUS as my lock. For my dog, I am going to go to the first matchup actually between Jari and Kaczmazov. Give me the dog here. Give me Kaczmazov on the money line at plus 140. Thought about the over. Didn't mind that either, but Jari has just been really bad lately. He's lost 7 of 8 matches, and he did win his last match against Klein. Wasn't easy, but he had not won a singles match in months. Now he's suddenly laying 160 against a guy that has not dropped a set yet in this event, including qualifying. So with that being the case, I do think you're looking at Jari being overvalued. I think that Kaczmazov has an underrated serve. Jari, we know, unforced error-wise, can definitely self-destruct more than I'd say on occasion over the last couple months. So give me the dog here to get the job done. Fading a guy that's lost 7 of 8 and backing a guy that has not dropped a set yet, winning 4 straight matches, including qualifying. So I like his overall form. Give me the dog here in great form at plus 140 as my dog. So once again, my picks for the actual show, the lock's going to be on Shang and Bublik. Give me the under half a tie break at minus 140 on BetUS. For the dog, I'm going to go with Kaczmazov money line at plus 140 against Jari. That's going to wrap it up. A reminder, you can find me on Twitter at Reichel Radio. Find me on the NBA show, WNBA show as well. Reminder, playoffs do start on Sunday, so we're going to have an episode, Terrell and I, to go through some of the game ones taking place on Sunday. Also, find me on the MLB show. Going to do an episode on that tomorrow. Till next time, though, good luck to all of you. We're back once again for the semis in Chengdu and Hangzhou. Don't forget to like, subscribe before I forget. Until next time, good luck to all of you and all of your bets. Bye, everyone.